Join me on the Coconut Soul Podcast as Janet Sandberg and I talk about how you can rekindle your passion and rediscover your soul. Janet experienced an abusive relationship where the abuse was subtle. Her journey of self-love revolved around connecting with her true self. She is a medium and a Reiki practitioner who always felt differently about the world. The massive change in her life allowed her to reconnect with her true self and her soul. For her, self-love is a byproduct of reconnecting with our soul. Janet Sandberg is a former gothic punk girl with a dragon tattoo who is now a Doc Marten wearing spiritual badass. She's an intuitive coach, divine channel, energy master, medium, and author. She loves helping women who are feeling lost, lonely, disconnected, and broken so they learn to let go of the past, discover who they really are now, and embody the thriving being they have yet to become. In short, Janet helps people fall in love with their souls so they can fall in love with their lives. Janet is the author of Spirit Would Like You to Know, a coloring journal to explore your soul. Grab your coconuts, whatever that means, and be ready to be inspired and this is so boring, all this like blah, 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 blah. Janet, I'm thrilled to invite you today as a guest on the Coconut Soul Spirit podcast. Now, I know that you've been featured in a magazine like The Woman to Watch in 2023. I hope you're going to tell us a bit about it. But since we're talking about self-love, I would really like you to tell us your self-love story, please.
Sure. I am super happy to be here today. And yes, I was featured in Sovereign Magazine, which is a magazine, spiritual magazine for fempreneurs, mompreneurs, spiritual women who have businesses. I kind of feel like I don't really fit into the mompreneur bracket anymore because my kids are grown, but I'm still a mom, always will be. But yeah, that was super exciting. And just such an honor to be featured with so many other amazing women who are out there changing the world.
Yes. Well, congratulations. It's quite an honor. And it's funny that you say that the mompreneur title, you don't really relate to it anymore because your children are grown. And this being said, I would imagine that that the fact that you're a mom still influences who you are as a businesswoman. And yeah, that doesn't go away. We're moms one day.
That doesn't go away, but the trying to balance work and kids and the whole like busy little kid lifestyle.
We get to get out.
Isn't there anymore?
So. I know. I relate. I'm a new grandma now. Sometimes I do babysit. Yeah, the grandson, but it's not the same thing because it's not my child. Now,
yeah, you get to get them back at the end of the day.
Exactly. So. One element that got me really interested in your self-love story is that you were in a bad relationship and you actually got out of there. And that's tied up with your self-love story. Could you share a bit about that, Janet?
Sure. So I was married before. Sketchy for like really how long, because we separated for years before we actually got divorced, so I never know like which number to count by. Somewhere around 15 years. It started off great. It wasn't bad the whole time, but the longer we were married, things just got worse and worse. So it was an emotionally abusive marriage. It was financially abusive, but all very, very subtle. Which emotional and mental abuse tends to be, but also even the financial abuse was very subtle. So I didn't realize, like many women in that situation, what was going on. for a long, long time, even though I had other friends who were worried about me and telling me that. I'm just like, oh, it's not that bad. And you're overreacting. It's all fine. Until the light finally went on. And I was like, but no, this is very bad.
Okay. And I really want to know, because a lot of men also are in toxic relationships and they tolerate things or they think it's normal. So what was it for you that lit up your light, as you mentioned?
So many things, but I think the biggest thing was a friend and a neighbor who lived across the street. She came over one day. There had been a big thing happen. I think maybe that was when we missed our flight to Italy. Like my ex and our kids, we were heading there for summer vacation, and we missed our flight because I said, it's an international flight. We need to be there early. And he's like, I travel all the time. It's an hour ahead is fine. Yeah. And then of course we missed our flight. So we come back home, everybody's in a bad mood. He takes the kids and like goes to the beach.
Okay.
And my neighbor saw us come back home and she knew that we were supposed to be on an airplane. Mm-hmm. So she came over and I told her what happened. And she just looked at me and she's like, he doesn't respect you, right?
Oh.
And I was like, I think I do now.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes you just need like somebody to be that upfront and blunt with you.
Yes.
And then I started, once I could put my finger on exactly what was wrong, like just that respect piece. Like obviously there were a lot of other things wrong, but once I had that one thing, then I could start looking at all these different situations that had happened and continually happened and went, now I see it.
Wow. Yeah. The veil was moved out of the way.
And then it was a swift downhill from there. Once I started seeing all the other things and realizing like none of this is normal. None of this is healthy. But we were living in the States at the time and I was on a visa. So my visa was only valid as long as I was married to him.
Oh, okay.
So if I left him, I would have had to have left the country, and I didn't want to uproot the children and make them move and everything. And then we ended up having to do that anyways. The universe looked out for me.
Yeah, sometimes the path gets a plan in front of us. Yes.
Yep. And we were supposed to get green cards, and the lady who was in charge of that just didn't do her job. And suddenly they were like, you all have to leave the country in 6 weeks. Oh. So I was like, okay, the kids and I will move to Canada because we're Canadian.
Yes.
And my ex found a job within the greater international part of his company and went to Mexico. So we ended up separating. And at the time, we said this will just be temporary, and we weren't really sure that we really wanted to like split up. And there was a lot of things up in the air. We weren't saying it was final, but as soon as we had actually separated and I realized what life without him was like,
it felt
I
good.
was like, oh, we are not going back.
Oh, wow. What a relief.
Yeah. So, and then it took many, many more years of trying to get all of the paperwork done, the international divorce. I'm remarried now, but there are still parts of our divorce that aren't settled legally.
Okay. So I can understand it gets messy.
Yeah.
Not
because he just refuses to relinquish control.
Okay. He's still in that state. Mm-hmm. As you said, he still wants to have his hand over you. But
yeah. He's in a new relationship. He's got 2 kids with his new girlfriend, but still won't let me go.
Well, you don't belong to that guy.
No, but it's just so silly to just not close up, the loose threads on our divorce.
I relate. I understand there's some point in a life where we need closure. Closure feels good.
Yeah.
We can put it behind. And now, as you're saying your story today, you mentioned that it's not finished because it's not, so it's still hanging a bit there. But how do you feel about that? I mean, like,
now I don't.
You seem fine.
I'm now, like, I just think it's ridiculous and silly, and like I just can't for the life of me understand why he won't just like be a grown-up about it. So it doesn't really bother me or affect me at all.
That's
like
good. That's good.
But it's taken me like 10 years to get this far. So
that's encouragement for women or men in difficult relationships, that sometimes the healing can take some time.
Yeah.
And part of healing, Janet, how did self-love, self-care, self-esteem, self-confidence, how did you have to embrace who you are to be able to grow? I'm going to say out of the relationship, but maybe you would have a better term.
No, that's a good way of putting it. But yeah, when I left, so I was a single mom to two kids. I think they were like 11 and 13 when we split up. Obviously, their dad was living in another country, so it was all me, all the time. And that was a lot of pressure. And I was like, I need to heal for myself, but I also need to heal for my kids.
Yeah.
I need to show them that I don't even know what I was trying to show them like back then. Like now is very different what I'm trying to demonstrate for them. And I think at the time, just because I was so deep into it, I was just like, I need to figure out who I am.
Yes.
And heal, because I was severely depressed and I was just like, I hate being like this. And then there was lots of other things happening. You know, my sister passed away and my dad had cancer, and there was a lot of other stuff I was dealing with at the time.
They were all piling up at the same time.
So yeah, I just was like, I just need to do what I need to do to feel good again.
And what was that? How was that? Or how did that translate? What did you have to do? Feel good again.
For me, that was really diving into spirituality. So I'd always been a medium. I'd always felt the world energetically and a little differently. And around that time, all of that kind of stuff was getting more popular.
Okay.
So it was a little easier to do. I was already a Reiki master by then. So I just started like diving into Reiki, learning more about my gifts, practicing more, finding out more about what I could do. And I felt good when I was working with energy, when I was connected to the universe. Like that was my happy place.
And that's quite a happy place. Just when you're talking about it, I feel that instant relief. And your gift, you discovered them when you were quite young, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I've been a medium since I was as little, like as far back as I can remember. So 3 or 4, I guess. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to use the gift.
Yeah.
That took me, till I was in my 30s to figure that out. But, and that was when I started doing all of my other things. Then the mediumship came back. And I was reminded that this was a thing that used to happen to me when I was a kid. And I was like, oh yeah, I wonder what that was. And so I explored it and I was like, oh, look at that. I'm talking to dead people. So
yeah. Well, good for you that from a broken marriage, having to redefine who you were, you went back into that true essence, because from 0 to 7, we're in our true essence. And you went back with that gift. So what people should know about you is that you're quite intuitive. It goes with what you just mentioned. That's one part I would like to dive in. But if you could start by telling us about your coloring book. Generally, we don't necessarily talk about books as I interview people, but I think your coloring book is so fun. So I'd like you to tell us about it, Janet.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a pandemic project. So when the world shut down and everything got quiet, it was such a cool time, like energetically speaking, at the beginning of the pandemic, because the energy of the world shifted and things just felt so different. And it was quiet, like energetically quiet. And I was like, this is so cool. And so I was getting like a ton of downloads and things. So one of the things became this project to write a book. So with my clients, I channel messages from their soul or from spirit, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it. And I had them all written down. And I was like, I want to reach more people, especially right now when people are searching a little bit more and people have time. And so I said, what if I made a journal? So I did. So I took all of these channeled messages, because what applies to one person generally will apply to other people. We're all the same.
We are.
And then I got a friend of mine who's an artist to hand draw some illustrations. So there are 30. So there's a prompt, there's an illustration, and then there's room to journal. So you can color a little bit as a bit of a meditation while you consider what the prompt has to say. And then you can journal about what that brings up for you. So it's a way to explore your soul on your own terms. And you can go through it, once a day for a month and make it be sort of a little challenge. You can open it up and use it sort of like a deck of oracle cards and just a random page and be like, what message is meant for me today? There's no right or wrong way to use the journal. You can do it every day. You can do it just whenever the mood strikes.
I love that it's a collaborative project also, that you reached out to your clients. They actually get to have their name in a published
no
book.
they don't. No, they were anonymous.
Okay. Well, they still know,
they know.
It's like, when we see sometimes some captions on TV or on the news, like during the pandemic, it's like, hey, that was me right there. So same thing, they could still be proud of that. So it's cool that you brought them in and that you did that with your friend. Is art a important part of your life?
I wouldn't say art. I am not artistically inclined in that sense. But interestingly enough, when I was little, when I would have these sort of mediumship things happen to me when I was little, and I didn't know what they were, that would always happen while I was coloring. Because that's when I was focused and meditative and calm and open. And so that's why I put the coloring in the journal, to help you open up to receive your guidance.
Yes, that is fun. I appreciate that you're mentioning that, because as adults sometimes we leave or crayons or even just the pencil aside, but I find that art can really help us tap into our subconscious and remodel some parts of the challenges that we've lived through in our lives. And about self-love, I'd like to know, how do you actually work with self-love with your clients? If so, is that a smaller part of what you do, a bigger part? How is it integrated, if at all?
It is. Generally, I help my clients rediscover their soul and their connection to their soul. But when you do that, then all of the self-love pieces happen. When you are connected to your soul and you let your soul lead, then you're more confident, you feel lighter, you just love yourself, because you're like, I am this incredible being made of stardust.
We are, yes.
So yeah, it just kind of naturally comes as a side effect of reconnecting with your soul.
Yeah, I've seen that even with some coaches that are business coaches. For them, it's also about self-love, where it all starts. And knowing yourself, I guess, appreciating yourself. All I'm going to say all this good stuff that seems obvious. Like it's so cliche when we say, get to know yourself, but it's not always easy.
It is
Do
not.
you, do you have some piece of advice for viewers that would want to reconnect with their soul, with their true essence?
I think the biggest and most challenging piece, which is where I always start with my clients, is trust. We have that, like you said, in that 0 to 7 age range, we
Yes.
just trust ourselves inherently. Like
Yes.
we are who we are and we do what we
Yeah.
want to do and we say what we want to say. And, like there's no reason not to. And it's coming back to that, coming back to trusting that we actually know what's best for ourselves and trusting ourselves to be able to follow through with either that knowledge or the action or the thoughts, whatever, and to block out all the noise and the stories we've been told, and really just learning to trust who we are and the magnificence that we are.
Indeed. I'm saying that and doing it like in a funny way. It's not to minimize it because we are magnificent. And that's one thing I realized as I was a nurse. And at one point I was doing some injections like Botox and fillers. And I had a friend, she's gorgeous. Like she's got beautiful dark hair like yours, beautiful blue eyes. And I asked her, like, do you know you're beautiful? And she did not. And for me, that was eye-opening because I'm like, okay, I can, work on some little elements on the face, but if that doesn't go to the core, and if woman or man don't know that they're beautiful inside and that they're awesome, then this is not what I want to do. That got me shifted. So indeed, you bring people to rediscover who they are, how amazing they are. And as we discover who we are, we change. And the people around us, sometimes they don't like the change too much. So then there's like a little, I'm going to say battle because I have no other words for it right now, but there's a battle, there's a challenge with the other people. Would you have any guidance to offer to the viewers that are in that period where they know they're awesome, they're starting to own it, but they find it difficult as when they're expressing who they are and they're starting to put their limits, maybe like you did when you found out, when you realized that your ex-husband didn't respect you. So I said a lot of things. So basically, my question for you is, what is your advice for people who are starting to express who they are and feel some resistance?
Yeah, that is very common. Sometimes it's just that people don't understand growth. They've never experienced it. They've never encountered it. Some families are just like that. They're small, they stay small. Everybody's comfortable with that. So they just like plain old just don't get it. Other people will feel threatened by it because you're growing, you're doing better, you're shining more than you used to. And they're like, they get jealous. And they're like, how come you're doing this? Do you think you're better than me now? And, they start putting all of this stuff that's in them onto you. But that's the choice. That's really sort of the big test where you have to choose yourself or everybody else, which you did at the beginning of this journey. That's why you chose to start reconnecting with your soul, was for yourself to be happier and healthier and creating a life that leaves you feeling fulfilled. But there might be a point where you have to really choose, do I continue to choose myself and my soul and this life? Or do I give myself up to keep everybody else happy? And if you do that, you are literally keeping them happy and denying yourself that happiness. And it's going to suck. There are no two ways about it.
Yeah.
You will have to let those people go, or at least like distance yourself. So you only see them, every so often. You're maybe not best friends anymore. And that's just part of growth. You sometimes outgrow people. And we did that, during school. And it was just natural.
I love your example.
Like we all grew at different paces. We were emotionally more mature or less mature than other kids our age. And sometimes, you just outgrew people you'd been friends with for a few years, and then you found new friends and you moved on. And then, and then you graduate, and then you go to a different school, and then you find more friends. And so it makes sense for us that as we're actually physically and mentally growing throughout school, that we change friends. Sometimes there's the odd ones we keep the whole way through. But it's like once we become an adult, we somehow think we're supposed to keep the same set of friends like our whole lives. And if you continue to grow and develop and change, that's not possible unless they are also doing the work.
Yes, of course. And to continue with what you're saying, then as some friends go, that leaves space for new friends to come, friends that are more in alignment with who you are and the real person you are right now. That's good. I really like that example you just gave, Janet. It's amazing. What you're saying today is inspiring. It's also, I would say, touching, because you did share about, some of your challenges that were more difficult, that were rough, to have had a 10-year span where it was still like a cloud. I don't know if it was a small cloud or a bigger cloud. So you went through a few challenges, and when I look at you, or I look at your social media, or as you mentioned, you were featured as one of the women to watch for the upcoming year. Do you think you could have achieved all of this if you had stayed in the same place where you were maybe 10 or 15 years ago?
I have no idea.
I love it.
I'd like to think that yes, like this is my soul's path that I'm on. So regardless of who is around me, if I had stayed married, if I had still been living there, whatever, I would like to think that I would still be doing the same thing. And I think I started this path of my work back then as well. So like I've been doing this a long time. I just think, I just would have been less free doing it. I would have had added expectations, and I don't know. I still would have done it, but I think it would have looked a little bit differently.
I understand what you're saying. And for that is an answer that I absolutely love, because if we take what you said to be a truth, just to go along, it means that in any situation we're in, we can still be walking and going towards our life purpose. And as you mentioned, you wouldn't have been free, or sometimes it's a bit more difficult, like when we don't understand and we're put back into those same patterns. So that's quite an encouragement, word of wisdom there. We're almost finished our interview. I do have a lot of questions for you still, so maybe who knows, I'm going to have to invite you again. But I know you have a gift to offer to our viewers, and I want to connect to your beautiful soul. But before you tell us about that, could you share with us anything that you've got on your heart here and now that you feel could benefit that person that's watching us right now.
The message that is coming up is just don't give up. Keep going, rest, take baby steps. And it might be frustrating, but don't give up. It will get better. It will get better.
Like right now, I'm the person listening to you. And that's a message for me. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. And I know that other people will also receive it. That's powerful, Janet. You are quite a woman.
Thank you.
And you have a free gift. I'd love you to tell us about it, please.
Yeah, I would love to offer anyone who is listening a free channeled message where you get to choose if you would like a message from your soul or a message from spirit. And it's just a short little 15-minute chat where we hop on Zoom and you get your message and we talk about, what you need and how you can take that message and turn it into action.
That's generous. And I know that anybody and each person, actually, each individual soul or spirit that's going to connect with you is going to have a ha-ha moment and also some rest, some ease. So thank you for your generosity. And the link will be in the comments to be able to take advantage of this beautiful gift Janet is offering you today. Janet, my soul is replenished. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me today.
My absolute pleasure. I love talking with you.
Thank you. And it was, of course, an honor. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Janet, wow, you're so lovely.
Oh, thanks.
Wow, this was great. Thank you so much. People need to hear. What an inspiring story. As Janet mentioned, self-love naturally comes as a side effect of reconnecting with your soul. Make sure to grab Janet's free channeled message from your soul or from your spirit. Click the link below to access your gift.